right. What is up, everybody? Good to see you on a Monday. Alex, good to see you, man. Missed you in Cabo next year. Appreciate you guys being here early on a Monday morning. So, when I was on this a few months ago, I was talking about the power of showing up. And I talked about uh, showing up in three different senses. There's the physical showing up, the emotional showing up, and the mental showing up. And so, going to Cabo last week, I don't know, were any of you guys here in Cabo? Darius, were you there? No. Um, so showing up to Cabo, I mean, there was just so many great examples. So I'll share some of the stories that I some of my experiences that I had in Cabo, but I'm going to reframe it a little bit because I think we all know the power of showing up. I think we all understand that, we've got to show up for our clients, for our friends, for our sphere. We've got to show up for other people when we're trying to do agent attraction. We have to be like physically present. We have to be mentally present. We have to be emotionally present in order to grow our business, in order to grow as a person. And but today, what I wanted to talk about was another aspect of that, which is this concept of proximity is power. And so I'll actually start off by sharing a story of something that my 14-year-old eighth grade son is going through. We've all been there. That middle school time of life is a very challenging, it can be a very challenging time. And he's kind of going through a transition with friends. Right now he's got this group of friends that are always hot and cold. There's all this drama. It's ridiculous. They're like, okay, we like you, now we don't like you. And it's ridiculous. But it's the point is that he's sitting there dealing with all of this stuff with his friends. And what's happening is he's getting tunnel vision. So all he can see is like, oh, all my friends are going to blow up. I'm not going to be able to hang out with anybody. I'm not going to have any friends anymore. The world is collapsing. This is all he can see. And as much as we try to get him to go broad and see the bigger scope of things, he's got tunnel vision. So where is that coming from? Well, let's just think about this for a second. If his friends were a little bit different, and he has some other friends in his group that are super high energy, positive, all that kind of stuff. And then he's got this group of friends. So this group of friends is influencing his energy. They're influencing his life. Proximity is power. And right now they are influencing him in a negative way. They are making his life worse. And so today, what I want to bring out in all of us is just to get us thinking about who is influencing us. Are they giving us tunnel vision in a good way or in a bad way? And so when I equate this to something like Cabo, I wish I could go through, you guys would be bored out of your minds, but I wish I could go through and give you the slide deck of what happened when I was in Cabo and how just showing up and being in proximity with those people has completely changed my life and changed my business in a week. I got to sit down with Ed Milet. For those of you that know Ed Milet, I just saw him sitting at the pool eating tacos, walked up, got to sit down and talk to him for like 30 minutes. I got to meet Pace Morby. I got to ride the elevator with Gary Brecka and ask him questions about my own personal health one-on-one. I got to talk with Jay Kinder, who's going to help me set up a funnel. I got to talk to Mike Collier. For those of you that don't know, Michael Collier this year, I just met him this year for the first time, but he ended up winning the Rick Jiha Award, which is a super major honor. So just a great guy, but he's going to help me set up some VA stuff. I talked with, I got to get, lots of time with Brent Gove. I got to talk with his partner, James, who I didn't even know he had a business partner. I met a really good commercial guy who's going to help me do some three-way calls. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on, but here's what I discovered through those interactions. Number one, I'm so glad that I physically showed up. Number two, I'm glad that I mentally and emotionally showed up. Pace Morby did a presentation at he forgot his passport, And so he came in super late the day that he was supposed to present. And so everybody was calling audibles. Long story short, I ended up getting into a room with about 30 people with Pace Morby, but that didn't start until like 9 or 9:30 at night. I didn't get out of that room until midnight. I was exhausted, but I had to sit there for 2 hours and just take this information in. I had to physically be there. I had to emotionally be there. I had to mentally be there to be able to take in the information that Pace was giving, and that was difficult. But here's what I discovered from hanging out with all of these people out in Cabo. Number one, um, it helped me understand what it takes and what it looks like to operate at a higher level. And so by seeing these people, I was like, this is what it looks like. Okay, cool. So by being in proximity with these people, I'm like, I understand where I need to go. I understand the what I need to do. But I would say maybe even more importantly, here's what I discovered. They're just people. They're people who make different choices than me. They're people that have a different drive, that have a different kind of vision, that have a different kind of dedication and commitment to consistency over a long haul. That's it. And so by being close to these people, not only did I learn knowledge, but I learned energetically what it looks like to be successful. And I also learned that I'm not that far off. I just have to make some different choices, and not even necessarily huge choices. And I would imagine you guys are probably in a very similar position. A few minor tweaks, those few choices. Brent Gove was saying that he heard this from somebody else, but life is lived between the B and the D, between the time that you're born and the time that you die. And your experience of life is in the C, your choices. Every day you wake up and you just make a series of choices, and those choices define your life. So here's the thing, though. The people that we surround ourselves with are influencing our choices, whether we choose to allow them to do that or not. And so proximity is power because it influences our choices, and our choices determine our entire life. So if we're looking for a way to level up, let's look at who we're hanging out with. So I guess today is kind of a challenge to take a look, go inward. Who are you hanging out with? And the way I see it, there's really 3 ways to change who we're hanging out with. Number 1, we can either cut people. Number 2, we can add new people to our sphere. Or we can double down on the people that we already know. So let's just kind of look at this really quick because, and it's funny because this is so fresh in my mind with my son dealing with his stuff. And I'm trying to kind of get him to see this like, hey, it's okay, man. It's okay that these friends go. And you'll have another season of life. You'll have these new people. You got to cut them, all that kind of stuff. But when we talk about cutting friends, it's not easy. When I've got a buddy of mine who he's still a friend of mine. I still talk to him. I still see him. But, when we were in high school, we were friends, and all through college, we were friends and everything. But it kind of got to a point where he started going this direction and I started going this direction. He's not a bad guy. He's not a mean guy. He's not terrible. He's a good businessman, all these kinds of things. But the fact of the matter is when I sit down with this person, my energy gets sucked out of me. He's a vampire. He just takes my energy. He brings negativity. He talks trash about other people. He talks about how awesome he is, blah, 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 all this stuff. Well, I don't want to be surrounded by that person. So I didn't go to him and be like, hey, man, you suck. Like, we're not hanging out anymore, because that's not really very effective. So all I did was change my relationship with him. So I do see him occasionally, but I'm not going to call him and ask him to go grab a beer. I'm not going to, I'm just not going to be proactive in reaching out to him. I'm also not going to ignore him. I'm going to be there for him if he ever needs me. But that person, I have made a choice that person doesn't get my energy anymore. If they're really a vampire, you just got to cut them all together. Maybe you do have to tell them, I don't, you suck, you're out. But one of the things that I learned from my dad is he always said, never burn bridges. And he was using it in the context of like me quitting a job. He was like, if you're going to quit a job, make sure you quit on great terms. because you never want to burn a bridge. You never know when that relationship's going to come back to help you. So even if somebody's not serving you, you don't have to burn it to the ground, but proximity is power. They're going to influence your decisions. Okay. The other part is to double down on the people who are impacting your life in a positive way. I told you I had a chance to talk with Mike Collier for about, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes around the pool with a couple other guys. And not only did we talk about business and talk about like VAs and things like that, but we talked about life. We talked about all sorts of stuff. And by the end of that experience, I was a better person. I had higher energy. I learned something. I felt good. I deepened my relationships with both Mike and the other two guys that were with us. And so that is a relationship that I want to double down on. You know, people like that make me better. I want to be surrounded by people like that bring the high energy, that bring the love, that want to see people, right? Like, who do you have in your life that is bringing that kind of energy and that kind of power? Like, literally make a list. Who are the vampires in your life? Who are the power partners who you need to double down with? You already have a relationship with them. And by the way, one of the best ways to double down with somebody, this is such an easy question. What can I do to add value to your life or business? So it's really easy to be like, hey, I need your help. I need your help. I want to double down with you. I want more attention from you. I want more from you. But at that point, we become the vampire, right? And they're not going to want to hang out with us anymore. So one of the best ways to double down on a solid relationship is not to ask for anything, but to ask how you can help. Ask how you can add value to their life or their business, and then do it. And that will double down on that relationship. That will strengthen that relationship, and you just continue to build it over time. And the thing is, you do that with one person, then you do it with two, then you do it with three. Next thing you know, you're surrounded by people who are awesome. And I know this from experience. I've cut the vampires. I've doubled down on the people that I love. And it's not perfect, but man, my friend group has really shifted over the last 10 years. And then the third way is to add new people to your proximity. So how do you do that? Well, there's lots of different ways to do that. One of the easiest ways is to show up. Show up to Dallas, show up to Cabo, show up to Miami, show up to, all of these events, show up to your local events that they do every year for EXP, show up to the networking events, show up when your friend asks you to go to the baby shower that you don't want to go to, show up, when your friend needs your help and support, show up in your business, make your phone calls, show up, take your people out, do your CMAs, do your open houses, like literally show up physically, emotionally, and mentally every single day. And you will naturally attract people to you. This is another thing that I've been talking to my son about is, you know what the cool thing is about this situation with his friends? It feels like he needs to fix it. But what I keep telling him is you don't have to fix anything. You just have to show up as you. Just be you. Focus on you. Be authentic. Be genuine. Show up as you. And the people that you need in your life will attract to that. And the people you don't need will be pushed away like a magnet. That's all we have to do. We just have to show up physically and then show up authentically, and we will attract who we need. That's the easiest way. That's the cheapest way. And by the way, going to this cheap versus expensive, it's really expensive to go to Cabo. And I'm not just talking about money. It's expensive to go to Cabo. Yes, it costs money, but to me, that's the least of the expensive. Like, if money is the reason you're not going to Cabo, then I would reevaluate that, because money is the least expensive piece of it. What's really expensive about Cabo is how much energy and mental focus that it takes to be there for 5 or 6 days. When you're chilling by the pool, you're networking. You're talking to people. You're building relationships all across the country. We've got all these great opportunities like co-sponsorship, all this stuff. So it's high energy. And when I came back on Sunday, I had to go back to work on Monday, and I was exhausted. It took me like all of last week to recover. It's expensive to go to Cabo, but you know what? I'm going to go back next year. I'm going to go back every year. I'm going to keep showing up because proximity is power. The people that were there made me better. I am a completely different business person today than I was before I went to Mexico. So that's the easiest way to gain proximity with new people is just show up with an open heart, open mind. Who can I talk to? Who can I serve? Who can I help? You go into it with that kind of mentality and you're going to build relationships with really good people. Because remember, at the end of the day, what does everybody want? They just want to be happy, safe, secure, joyous, right? All those kinds of things. We all want the same thing. So if we show up and we're just helping people, we'll build relationships. Doesn't matter how much money they have. The other way is to pay for it. Do you have a coach? So earlier this year, Casey Jiha asked me, well, it was a small group of people, but she asked, what is your personal development goal this year? And I was like, oh, shoot. Like I got goals, but you know what? I haven't built one around that. And so long story short, what ended up happening is I ended up getting into a coaching group with a bunch of guys. There's like 6 or 7 of us. It's a small group of guys. And it's been life-changing for me. I wouldn't have done that if Casey didn't ask that question. But the point is, and then I'm also participating in a coaching group with Brent Gove. It was expensive financially and emotionally and mentally and all that kind of stuff, but it's paid for itself tenfold. So who are you working with as a coach? You don't even have to pay for it necessarily. You can go find a mentor. That's what EXP is all about. That's what makes this company freaking amazing. Jesse Zagorski is an amazing resource. We're very lucky to have lots of great people in our corner. But if you can't find that mentor, are you paying anybody? Are you paying somebody to get you into the rooms that you need to be in? Are you paying somebody to help you build the relationships? Are you paying somebody that's making you better at speaking? Are you paying somebody that is making you a better business person or just a better person in general? Are you paying somebody to help fix your mindset? Like getting in the room and getting proximity to people, sometimes you just have to pay for it. And then you have those relationships. So something to just consider if you don't have a coach or anything like that, something you might want to consider. Some other ways that you can get in front of new people, throw parties, showing up to the work events and networking at the EXP events, inviting people to those events, getting brave and inviting people to come to those things that maybe you don't have a great relationship with yet. Host your own events, teach classes, coach other people, right? You don't know where that up and comer is. Like we're talking about, okay, go find your mentor. Who are you mentoring? Who are you helping along? Because that person, if you know, they're excited, they're ready to go, that energy also rubs off on us. So we can create proximity by going out and actually helping other people, providing value to other people. All right. So we're going to wrap up here in just a few minutes. This is kind of a quick, like down and dirty. It's a pretty quick message, right? And it's easy. It makes sense, but I think one of the biggest problems I've experienced early on in my career is that I allowed people to take my energy. And we haven't even talked about this part yet. But think about your clients. Do you have clients who are taking your energy, like sapping it, vampires? Do they deserve that much time and energy? What if you took that time and energy and put it into people who really align with you, who really support you? Just something to consider. Because all the people that we surround ourselves with, they influence our choices and our choices influence our life. It's really, really, really important that we get really clear on who we're hanging out with. So once again, I'll leave it with this. I would challenge you to make a list of the vampires in your life. Make a list of the people you're going to double down with. And remember, the best way to double down with them is to ask them how you can add value. And then finally, write down at least 2 ways you can get in front of new people who are going to inspire you. And I'm going to encourage you to go to EXP events. Why? Because EXP has attracted some of the best in the business from all around the world. When you go to these events, you meet Leo Pareja, you meet Brent Gove, you meet Glenn Sanford. You want to be around those people. You want to build relationships with those people. not just because they're powerful or whatever, but because they're awesome people. So write down at least two new ways that you can get connected with people who are going to inspire you and help take you to the next level. That's my hope for all of you. That's why I wanted to do this whole thing today. So we'll wrap up 10 minutes early today. I'm not going to belabor this for any longer, but I appreciate you guys being in here on Monday. I'll stick around for a few minutes if anybody has any questions or if you guys even want to do kind of a mastermind on this subject.
I'll snipe some time from you, Dan.
Sweet, let's do it.
All right. So, what were some of your favorite takeaways from the speakers on stage? I can give you some examples from what I took away last year. Like, one guy said he went to a gym and he would show up 15 minutes early to get the class that was leaving the gym, to get the people he was in for that class he was with, and he would stay 15 minutes late. So I'm just thinking, like, what were some like key little like small things that they had said that maybe stuck with you?
Yeah. Well, Ed Milet, if anybody's ever heard Ed Milet speak, he's so good. He's so good. There wasn't a dry eye in the house when he was speaking, but um and he's so powerful. So Ed Milet showed up to that bed with walking pneumonia, a broken jaw, and pretty freshly out of back surgery. And he was still there. Like just that in and of itself is inspirational. But he told this story about these eagles on he owns an island. So these eagles on his island, and the husband eagle died, or the whatever the male died, and so the female had to either die or she had to like step up. And so she literally went to a rock and for 4 months was sharpening her beak on a rock. And so Ed Milet's like watching this happen over time, you know? And she started plucking out all of her feathers, and it turns out that she plucks out all of her feathers so that new feathers can grow in. So basically she went through an entire transformation so that she could be the one to provide for herself. And then she ended up finding another mate, and everything worked out okay. So he was talking all about how we have to shed our old self to become a new self, and how important it is how important these choices are. She could either choose to die or she could choose to sharpen her beak. So for me, that was a super powerful message. Um, Gary Brecka talked all about health and wellness. So kind of generally how to take care of yourself. He's so smart. I never knew who he was. But man, I could go on and on. Veronica Figueroa got up there and talked about bravery and being bold. That was really good. Uh, uh, what's her name? Spring Benson got up there and talked about her story and her experience. And I mean, dude, I could go on and on and on, but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of little tidbits that came out of that. And one more thing that I'll say is while those are really great, you know what I'm going to remember the most? Seeing Gary Brecka in the elevator and being like, "Hey man, let me bend your ear." You know, seeing Ed Milet sitting by the pool eating tacos by himself and just like sitting down and being like, "Hey, what's up, Ed?" Talking to him for like 30 minutes. Those are the things that I'm going to remember because those were insanely impactful for me.
Tell them to do it at different locations. I like variety, Dan.
Well, so funny you should say that. So I think next year's in Cabo again. And then Brent Gove was saying that the following year is going to be at a new location, but he wouldn't tell us where it was. My wife Allison was telling me that she heard him say that it's going to be in the U.S. They're building some facility somewhere, but he wouldn't tell us where it is. So that's for 27. So that will be somewhere else.
I'll probably be there next year, but I like variety, Dan. I want to go to different places. You probably won't catch me at EXPCon this year either.
Uh, yeah, I agree. I like going to different places too, but
Yeah. Well, I totally get what you're saying. I remember hanging out with like Phil Steiger last year, talking to him about all the AI stuff out there.
yep.
Just like hanging out with these big, well-named people and seeing how they're human. And that Eagle story, I like that.
Yeah,
That's that's the hero's journey right there.
that's right. Well, and here's the thing. That's exactly right. Um, yeah, thanks for being here, Sherry. So it's gosh, I wish I could just I wish I could like encapsulate everything, but at the end of the day, um, I think what surprised me the most was being in those rooms. And by the way, I paid for that, right? But getting in those small rooms with these heavy hitting people, it was so cool to see how normal they are. Like the biggest difference is they don't talk shit about anybody or anything. Everything is very positive, future forward, visionary forward. They don't, everything is just, it's very positive. We're moving forward. We can do this. We got this. So it's a very high energy, but at the same time, man, they're just people that do stuff consistently. They sharpen their beaks, they pluck their feathers, they do that stuff that Ed Milet was talking about on a regular basis, and that's why they're high performers. And they're laser focused, right?
Um, did you get a chance to hang out with Leo Perea a lot? Like, did you? Because I've watched him on some like YouTube videos and some of these calls, and like that guy, like I would follow that guy into hell.
Right.
I mean, he's like I don't know. He's one of he's motivational. He's like in the trenches CEO, which I feel like is just different. And I would like to. That was one of the things that I was like, maybe I should go to Cabo, is to hang out with Leo, because I like how he calls himself the wartime CEO.
Yeah. So he, I think, was doing a bunch of traveling. So he like came in, spoke, and then he jetted back out. What he was talking about is he's like, I've been gone from my family for a bunch of time, and like I got to go home and see my family, so I'm in and out like later. So I didn't get to talk to Leo at all, but that's all right. I mean, you got Brent and Rob Flick and all those guys. And by the way, they have a golf tournament too. I got to play in a golf tournament, so you get partnered with people who you don't know. Well, I got to meet Tony Figueroa and Jay Kinder and his son Braden, and built a bunch of relationships with them, and that ultimately led to me meeting Mike Collier and all this other stuff. So that one choice to play in that golf tournament is going to completely change the strategy of my business like forever. It's crazy how these one conversation with somebody can completely change your life. But you got to show up and you got to be around the right people, because they can change it in a bad way too. Help you see how horrible the world is. Help you see how hopeless it is. So you got to be really careful about who you're hanging out with so that they influence you in the direction that you want to go.
Nice.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. What's that, Alex?
I said that sounds like some fun stuff. Today you got to meet some really cool people.
And I think next year's supposed to be a pretty awesome lineup as well. So, I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, yeah, I like to go to different places and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I go to those events for one reason: meet people, like meet really good people. That's it. And I can do that in Cabo. I can do that in my backyard. I can do that, anywhere. So I'm going to go where the people are and have those conversations. So
I'll see you next year. I'm sure I'll see you at something.
all right. Perfect. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.